It is misleading because what we're comparing in the previous slides are the pay scales as they sit. What this is comparing is the actual pay of the school board, so the payroll of the school board of teachers. And this is only factoring in teachers. It's not factoring in aides, it's not factoring in custodians, school nurses, who all sit on that pay scale. And I mean, I'm fairly educated person, I like to think, and working towards my degree in special education. I'm a full-time student, I work 2 jobs, but as a full-time employee for Bedford County Schools, I make less than $14,000 a year. So we're not that, I want to emphasize something too, we're not dead last in any of those categories, but coming in second and third from last is still not great.
No, I agree.
We wouldn't encourage that of our students.
Mr. Honeycutt,
Yes,
Mr. Martin has
ma'am.
a question.
Sir.
Where would Bedford County right now, if the school board had not chosen to not give teachers step pay?
Had not chosen to give teachers
Yes.
step pay?
Where would we be then? I mean, it looks like
Well,
we're
the
just saying
steps-
we're putting everything on us, but I think this falls back on step pay being cut out for teachers is where your problem starts to really accelerate.
And this is the big problem with educational funding, as I see it. I mean, there's a lot of, well, teachers want to raise. Go talk to
Step pay,
go,
they were getting a raise.
They were getting a cost. There's a difference between a cost of living increase and a pay raise. The pay raise is for merit. A step increase is for cost of living. But if I can't address your question.
Go ahead.
There is a confusion, and I think that if you pull someone off the street and ask them, hey, do you know how your public schools are funded? They would say, yeah, the federal government. I think that would probably be the biggest answer, because I think a lot of people don't understand the complexity of public school funding in a locality. The reality is the federal government hardly gives any money to a school, and a lot of municipalities want to keep it that way. I mean, that's a reality. Oh, well, then maybe it's the state. Well, the state really doesn't do a whole lot. They ask of a lot of us now, and they want us to modify the way we teach. They want us to be accountable for various things, but they're not kicking in a whole lot of extra money. They are, I think, debating right now 1.5% increase for teacher salaries. But looking at those numbers, 1.5% does not reflect the cost of living increase over the past 8 years. So then we're back to the local municipalities.
But you still did not answer my question. Where would we be if we had stayed with it and the step increase on that board now?
So if you could allow me just one more minute. So then we come back to the 2 kind of central entities that sit over top of the public school system. One is the school board, and one is the Board of Supervisors. Teachers want to raise, we go to the school board, and they say, well, we put it before the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors said, you know, we couldn't fund the budget as it is. Go back and rework the numbers, and you decide if you're going to give them with less money a raise. So we go to the Board of Supervisors, and as we are now, the Board of Supervisors saying, hey, go back and talk to the school board. Our goal here is to open up an honest level of communication that kind of stops the ball from bouncing back and forth in the blame. I think if I were to be sitting in front of the school board and pose that question to them, their response to me would be, go talk to your Board of Supervisors, because we wanted to keep the budget the way it was, but we didn't have the money to keep those pay scales in, pay steps in. I think they would say that we recently incurred a large increase when the state mandated the 3.5% BRS contributions from all employees, and that the Board of Supervisors gave us the money for it 1 year, and then the next year they told us that was a one-time thing, and they didn't fund supplying the funds for that increase on a rolling basis.
Mr. Honeycutt,
Yes.
I would like to address that.
Okay.
Regardless of what the school board was going to use that money for, at the last minute, I'll tell you what happened that fiscal year. At the last minute, late in the budget process, the school board approached the county administrator and said, we need $2.5 million because of the situation we're in. We need monies, and that was around the same time that federal stimulus monies were drying up. This school board, this Board of Supervisors did not hesitate to come up with $2.5 million out of fund balance, transfer that to the schools. And it was couched that it would tide us over until we get the money from reversion. But they all knew that it was one-time monies. Now, I've heard it's presented time and time again, yeah, but it was ongoing expenses. Yeah, that is not how it was requested. It was requested, we need $2.5 million of emergency money. We're gonna be hurting. We're gonna have to drastically cut positions, all kinds of things. Then we'll get the $2.5 million.
Right.
And we did not hesitate to come up with $2.5 million out of fund balance to help the school board. But then, since that time, I have been beaten up time and time again for not having given the $2.5 million every year thereafter. And I would say that in that particular case, there was no tax increase associated with $2.5 million. It clearly came from fund balance. We couldn't continue to hit the fund balance for $2.5 million, but that, the fund balance wasn't that high to begin with. So it paints the Board of Supervisors as, oh, well, the Board of Supervisors gave it and then took it away. Well, that's not entirely accurate, because we could have just said no, but we clearly didn't. We do understand the value of education. We clearly did not want our teachers and staff suffering, and we immediately, without hesitation, came up with $2.5 million in fund balance to make sure the school board was made whole that year.
I don't disagree with anything that you said there, except for that year. That the reality of was, no matter how it was presented at the time, it was a rolling expenditure. That's between you and the school board as to the light under which it's painted. I know what other municipalities have done, but I would say that the state said to all the counties and the cities, this is going to be a requirement from here on. And if it did justify a tax increase, perhaps that might have been something to be considered, because it is an expense that has to be considered year to year by the school board. And it's also, for the teachers, in the back of our head, we're wondering, well, what's it going to be the next year? Is it going to be 4% the state's asking us to contribute every year? Is it going to go up? Is it always, or is it going to be this fixed thing? So it is something that's an additional concern for us in the back of our head. But I think your comment speaks to what I was saying to you earlier, that there is this kind of us against them mentality, and our goal as educators is to work for the children. I think that if we...
I'm not the one that's been beating up the Board of Supervisors.
And I'm not the one beating up you at the moment, so if the... My position and BCA's position is that if the school board comes to you with a budget, as we spoke to earlier, our assumption is that is in the best interest of this county's school children and public schools, and that is the level at which it should be funded. That is our position.
Mr. Honeycutt,
I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure I answered, I'm sorry, do I refer to you as Supervisor Martin or Mr. Martin?
Sure, whatever you want.
Okay. Did I answer your question adequately? I kind of jumped ship on you there for a minute.
You really say that if they had a step increase had stayed in that, Bedford County would not be at the bottom of the total hole.
Certainly, if that, and that is a reality, if the step increases were maintained, our averages would be significantly higher. I haven't done the math, so I don't know where we would fall out with that. I know that it is, at best, it's a misleading practice to keep that pay scale on the website for new hires, because you go into it thinking the next year I'm going to get this. The reality, though, is, I think maybe in the back of everybody's head, it'll be a good idea for this year. Let's do it. And, okay, we'll do it one more year. Now we're coming on 8, and to retroactively do it, how much would it cost this county to go back to what the teachers should be making right now, and the rest of the educational staff?
I can tell you this, my wife's a 30-year teacher, and she is telling me that this scale that have been intact, Bedford County would be well on up the ladder further than what we are right now.
And I'm sure, the laws of numbers speak to that. But the reality is, it wasn't maintained, and we're facing, it is, we're facing now, we're asking.
What am I sitting here as a member of this board, District 2? I'm hearing that, you know, here we are closing schools, spending money for finding out how to run our schools, when we have people that's being paid to run our schools, and then we're turning around hiring more people in central office, and yet we're leaving our teachers behind. I mean, that's what I have to listen to. And I mean, I'm not hearing it, you know, just once in a while. It's somebody on my email every day that I can show you that's complaining about how the things are going in it. And it's not from parents, it's from teachers, it's from everyone. And of course, I haven't seen anything from you, Bob. But I'm sure I will after this. The thing is, I'm just trying to tell you what we're facing with us. I mean, you're like coming here, us against them, them against us. No, it's us against, in my district, 10,000 people. And at 10,000 people in my district, pretty much all I know that for this county to grow and have people come here for development is education. If you don't have a strong education, nobody wants to put the kids in a school that's plumb overcrowded. And if you look at the charts here, I see a lot, you got some schools that's up here to 118% over now, you know, above the capacity of it. Who wants to put a child in a classroom like that? I don't. I personally, I'd like to be honest and truthful with you, and your father knows. I don't send my kids to Bedford County schools. I send them to a private school because I know for a fact when school is over and their term is finished, they got to compete with thousands of kids out there for an education. And if you got overcrowded classrooms and spending the least you can spend on education, you're not going to get the proper education that comes out to create people to have jobs and the workforce to be strong.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that the fact that you're getting this email is comforting to me that, you know, the citizens of the county recognize that there is a problem. And you can't fix everything with money, but when it comes to education, you certainly can't hurt it with money. That is an absolute truth. So I'm sorry, Ms. Parker.
I was going to say, I'd like to finish, go ahead and let you get finished, because I have a feeling we all got questions.
Okay.
I just want to follow up with what you just said.
Okay.
I agree with what Mr. Martin is saying, but this is the Bedford County Board of Supervisors. You have an elected school board and a superintendent that makes the decisions on step increases or performance increases. And those decisions are made by that elected body, not this. So what he's trying to tell you, and I don't think it's getting across, is that's not for us to say that step increases need to be in place.
I understand. Can we agree on this principle, that the Board of Supervisors gives an operating sum of money to the Bedford County school board, and then the school board chooses how to implement and use that money?
Absolutely.
Can we agree on that?
Absolutely.
And
The
move
Board of
forward?
the Board of Supervisors gives a local pot of money, and then there's a state pot of money, and then there's a
The
federal
federal,
pot of
right.
money. The only pot of money that this board controls is that local pot of money that goes.
Wait.
And then the school board and Dr. Shook are the ones that budget that money and appropriate that money the way they see fit.
Right, and I think we're in agreement on that concept, and that we would. I would just like to also establish that the bulk of what funds public schools is that local pot of money.
No, the bulk is from the
No?
state.
From the state? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I don't know if I hit the slide or not. This is where we fall out with the state average. Over 20% below the state average on teacher pay. 8.5% below local.
No, the source for that, by the way, that was from 2012. And you said this is,
These are based on salary comparisons now.
but your source is a 2012 document.
Allow for the typo and I'll fix it and email it to you if you don't mind. Okay. Some of the framework of this was worked off of a presentation that was given 2 years ago. We used the same sources, the same entities to get the information from. The date was just decided wrong. So we represent the educators of Bedford County, again, reinforcing that those are the full educational staff. We took a survey of those educators. We took a sampling of 100 Bedford County school teachers and staff. 100% of the surveys were completed and returned.